A military plane crashes into a commercial plane. 64 people are dead. In the aftermath of this, the current administration places blame on diversity, equality, and inclusion hires as a cause or likely cause or probable cause to the unfortunate event. I want you to understand that this is the administration's way of setting things up to claim no responsibility. This is a this is right out of the current administration's playbook. This is the playbook of the orange felon liar. I want you to understand. Where do I base this on? I'm going to pull up an article from 2020 during the COVID crises, in which the orange felon liar said he didn't take responsibility at all for the carnage that had come about from COVID. In fact, the article that I'm reading from is from Politico. An article says that he deflected blame for his administration's lagging ability to test Americans for a coronavirus outbreak, insisting instead, without offering evidence, the fault lies with his predecessor, Barack Obama. Says the orange felon liar, I don't take responsibility at all, pointing to an unspecified set of circumstances and rules, regulations, and specifications from a different time. In the wake of what had happened, what did the orange felon liar said? This is from Huffington Post. He blamed diversity hiring at the Federal Aviation Administration for the deadly midair collision in Washington, D.C., days after his new administration banned diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts across the federal government, including the FAA. Asked why he singled out DEI as a cause of the crash when an investigation is just getting underway, because I have common sense, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't. We want brilliant people doing this. This is a major chess game at the highest level. Now, the article goes on to say this. The orange felon liar, however, doesn't appear to have changed any of the Obama era standards himself. The orange felon liar, according to the article, claimed both of his Democratic predecessors, Barack Obama and most recently Joe Biden, for having attempted to lower standards for FAA hiring, and that he latter reversed it in office, including with an executive order forbidding DEI efforts at the FAA. Just one of the executive actions he signed last week, seeking to root out any focus on race or gender in the federal government. Now, I'm going to talk a little more about that in this particular segment. Says the orange felon liar, I changed the Obama standards from very mediocre to at best. I changed the Obama standards from very mediocre at best to extraordinary. I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first. And they put politics at a level that nobody's ever seen because this was the lowest level. The orange felon liar, however, according to the article, doesn't appear to have changed any of the Obama era standards himself. And an NBC News correspondent pointed out during the briefing that the list of standards on the FAA's website that he cited had not been updated since 2013. 2013, that was during the Obama era. So that means that there was nothing done during his first term, which lasts from 2017 to 2021. The orange felon liar insisted, though, I changed the Obama policy, and we have a very good policy. And then Biden came in and he changed it. And then when I came in 3 days ago, I signed a new order bringing it to the highest level of intelligence. Okay. All righty. Now, here's the deal. All this talk about DEI is just the setup for him, again, to claim no responsibility for something that actually has happened on his watch, regardless of the fact that it may have been 10 days into his second term. It has occurred on his watch. Even though he's still getting people in place, it happened on his watch. Had this happened with Joe Biden, or another person, let's say Obama, because in recent history, the most recent presidents have been Joe Biden and Barack Obama. People like the Orange Felon Liar and his acolytes and his sympathizers and Republicans would be banging the drums and sounding alarms and blowing the foghorns that this administration is fucking inept and is bringing in people that don't know what the fuck they're doing. That's exactly what they would be doing. But unfortunately, we're in a different time and a different era. So let me talk. I'm going to talk more about the DEI and DEI hires. Well, in the barrage of executive orders that have gone out over the first 10 days, one of them was ending DEI, according to this directive that was put out on January 20th. So that was within hours of him taking the oath of office. One of the things that was rescinded was a previous executive order from 1965, which is back in the days of Lyndon Johnson, coming off of the heels of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and the Voting Rights Act of 1964 and the Civil Rights Act of 1965. And so, Executive Order 11246 of September 24, 1965, the Equal Employment Opportunity is hereby revoked, according to this directive. For 90 days for the date of this order, federal contractors may continue to comply with the regulatory scheme in effect on January 20, 2025. But it goes on to say, the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs within the Department of Labor shall immediately cease promoting diversity, holding federal contractors and subcontractors responsible for taking affirmative action, and allowing or encouraging federal contractors and subcontractors to engage in workforce balancing based on race, color, sex, sexual preference, religion, or national origin. All right. I noticed an article, the Nation article from a few days from last week. The author was Ellie Mistil. He's a noted writer and very knowledgeable of the judicial system, the court system. He starts off. He says that the federal government is the largest employer in the United States. It is the largest employer in every single state. But the federal government is no longer an equal opportunity employer, thanks to the series of executive orders and directives passed by the white supremacist Trump administration that collectively allow for racial discrimination by claiming to eliminate racial discrimination against the poor, downtrodden white man. Yes, that's what it amounts to. You know, the guy who's never been able to get a fair shake in this country. So he signed the first of these orders, ending radical waste and wasteful government DEI programs, and prefacing the order describes diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessible programs as illegal and immoral discrimination, as well as sources of immense public waste. So what it amounts to is that pretty much if someone like me is in a position in the federal government, there are those who may look upon me as someone who may have been a, quote, preference hire. Someone like you as a preference hire. Someone like him as a preference hire, like her as a preference hire. I talked about something like this several months back with my experience as a newspaper reporter. How I remember articles, at least within the trade articles, in which editors spoke of how there were editors who said that they wanted to hire, they wanted to be more diverse in their staff. Let's put it like that. They wanted to hire, at that time, black reporters, but they said they can't find any. And then someone shows up to interview, they don't consider them for a job. And then if they are hired, the mindset and culture was that the assumption was that, well, they're only hired because they're black. Don't matter that they went to school for journalism. Don't matter that they proved themselves to that point in their career. The automatic assumption was that They were hired because they're black, and more than likely they lack the skills necessary to perform the job. And that is basically what's being implied here. Now, I know that there's going to be people saying, no, 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 that's not it. Yes, it is. See, you have to have lived through something like this to understand what I'm talking about. You have to have lived through this to begin to see things from outside of the box. And when it's all said and done, I'm not going to say when it's all said and done. I'm going to go back to my initial point. The administration is setting things up to where if anything that basically has happened, they're going to point to the past and saying that, no, it wasn't us, it was them. So what they want to do. So what's going to happen then if they do achieve purging the government of all the people that they don't want there, who don't agree with them, whom they don't want there, and they bring in the people that they want, and shit still happens. Who then do they blame? But being who this orange felon liar is, the head of this administration, the white supremacist in chief himself, he will find a way to claim that he has no responsibility. But I also want to end this with just a real brief comparison of what is the perception then of a DEI hire based on the mindset of people who will probably say that Lloyd Austin, who was the Secretary of Defense under Joe Biden, as opposed to the recently confirmed Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. What I'm going to do is pull up Lloyd Austin's resume, and then you compare it to Hegseth, and you make a decision for yourself whether this person has who is more qualified for the job. Okay, Lloyd Austin, Secretary of Defense, was according to the source that I have here, he held the unique distinction of having commanded in combat in Iraq and Afghanistan at the 1, 2, and 3, and 4-star general levels. He was a 4-star general when he was appointed to be Secretary of Defense. And he was a recipient of the Silver Star, the nation's third highest award for valor, and for his actions during the Iraq invasion, as well as 5 Defense Distinguished Service Medals. Among other things, he was a graduate of West Point, which is the U.S. Military Academy for the Army. He finished with a Bachelor's of Science degree. He also holds 2 master's degrees, one in counselor education from Auburn, and then Master's of Business Administration in Business Management from Webster University. And then he's also a graduate of Army Command and General Staff College and the Army War College. So this guy's been out there in the fields. He's proved he has proved himself. I mean, you don't become a general just by showing up. You've got that takes Senate confirmation. That takes Senate approval. Okay. And he was approved not once, not twice, not 3, but 4 times. Okay. Now you have Pete Hegseth. I can't even get it right. Okay. He graduated from Princeton University. He worked for a private firm. And then he served he served twice in the Army National Guard, attaining the rank of major. He received a Bronze Star while serving in the Special Operations Forces during a combat deployment in Iraq in 2005. He voluntarily deployed to Afghanistan to train Afghan security forces. But then he became very active in right-wing politics and was executive director of Vets for Freedom and Concerned Veterans for America. He's also most recently was known as a political commentator for Fox News and a weekend host of Fox and Friends from 2017 to 2024. So his claim to fame basically is appearing on Fox TV and being a vocal and staunch cheering boy for the orange felon liar. That's really what it amounts to. But it's also believed that he is a Christian nationalist. You may also say that he's a white Christian nationalist. The combination of both. There's also, according to this information, I'm going to pull it up on the screen now, because since I've been just talking, and that's my bad. Okay, it's up on the screen now. It speaks of in this bio about on November 12th, it was announced that he intended to it was announced that he would be nominated to serve as the next Secretary of Defense. And so Hegseth ended his deal with Fox News that month so he could take the position. Several days later, a woman sent a memo to the transition team about sexual assault allegation against him. Several senators subsequently expressed concern. One GOP senator, Kevin Kramer, said the allegations were pretty big given that we have a sexual assault problem in our military. Tammy Duckworth, senator from Illinois, said it's frankly an insult and really troubling that someone would nominate him who has admitted that he's paid off a victim who has claimed rape allegations against him. This is not the kind of person you want to lead the Department of Defense. Others called his inexperience a concern. As reported by Defense One, Hegseth has never made a national security policy, never served in a senior military role, never worked in defense acquisition, or led an organization larger than a nonprofit advocacy group. Not to mention, they talk about him being a drunk, boisterous behavior, and of course the sexual assault allegations. So that sounds like to me that is your DEI hire, someone who has far less credentials being considered for something as serious, something as significant as the Secretary of Defense, being responsible for thousands of employees with multi-billion-dollar budget, dealing with some of the most secret and sensitive security concerns of this country. And you have in comparison someone who served in capacity as a 4-star general prior to being confirmed for the Department of Defense, and this other person whose qualifications were so questionable that it took the tie-breaking vote of the current vice president for him to earn confirmation. This was only the second time, it's according to U.S. history, that a cabinet member was confirmed on the strength of the tie-breaking vote by the current vice president. The other was Betsy DeVoe for the Department of Education. And if many of you recall from her confirmation hearings, she could not answer basic questions that were asked by then Senator Al Franken about basic education policy. So I know that I talked a lot of things, but I hope you see the common thread through all this. You see the common thread of how DEI is being this ideological piece as a setup for the administration to claim no responsibility when things go wrong and when things don't go its way. But also you see examples of already true the intent of getting rid of DEI, where you bring on not even mediocre candidates, but unqualified candidates taking on very important and senior roles in government. And this is the type of stuff that goes on in private business as well. So that's all I have to share for this particular segment. Hopefully you got something out of it. And I'll be uploading something again very soon.